His spirit, hearts are yearning for Him. Cause when we see it, we find strength to face the day. Amen. And in your presence, all our fears are washed away. They're washed away. Here's the good chapter. Yay! Chapter 11. Oh, I've been waiting for this. Because this is where God turns the corner and reveals to us a side of Him that has not been so obvious up until this point. God's love for Israel continues. God will not give Israel up because He loves them. Up until now, the emphasis has been on their disobedience, our disobedience. But there's a new note that's sounded here. The love of God. And how wonderful that is. Verse 1. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. How tender is that? You know what he's talking about there? When he called his children out of Egypt, when he parted the Red Sea, when he gave them manna from the sky and water out of a rock, and the soles of their shoes never wore out in 40 years of walking. God is remembering in verse 1, He's remembering His tender love for Israel. And that was over 500 years ago that He brought them out of Egypt. God is remembering the close relationship they had. You know what, ladies? He didn't take them out of Egypt because they were serving Him. Did you know that? They were serving idols, even in Egypt. It shows us that He took them out because He loved them. Not one of them was worthy to have been released from Egypt. Not one of them. It was just His love. Verse 2, but the more they were called, the more they went away from me. How sad. They sacrificed to the Baals and they burned incense to images. It was I who taught Ephraim to walk. Ladies, this part is so tender. Just the word picture. It was I who taught Ephraim to walk, taking them by the arms. But they did not realize it was I who healed them. And God does so much for us that we don't even acknowledge, that we're even unaware of. We get so hung up on all that's wrong in our lives. And I'm guilty too. And He's all the time blessing us and giving us and doing for us and showing His love to us, to me, an ungrateful, spoiled little brat that I am. And He keeps giving me. He keeps giving. He keeps loving. His love keeps reaching. He never withholds His love from me, no matter how unlovable I can be. Often we attribute the blessings and those good things that happen to us along the way to other sources, right? Not to God necessarily. It's like, oh, that was a nice person. You know what? God spoke to that person, believer or not, whether they were a believer or not. God spoke to that person. God had that man stop and help us change our flat tire. God sent them along. Any good thing that happens along the way, we think, oh, what a nice man. No. I mean, yeah, he was a nice man, but that was a gift from God. We need to start seeing those things as gifts from God. But this is such a sweet, tender picture, I think, here. It's a picture of a parent teaching his child how to walk by holding the child's arms and supporting that child as he takes his first awkward steps. Going back to verse 3, it was I who taught Ephraim to walk, taking them by the arm. You know, you just take that person and walk that person. It might be a grown person. You take them by the arms and you steady them. And they did not realize it was I, God says, who healed them. Verse 4 is even better. I led them with cords of human kindness, with ties of love. That's how he led them. That's how he leads us. To them, I was like one who lifts a little child to the cheek, and I bent down to feed them. What a beautiful word picture that is of our God with us. I encourage you to circle that verse, underline it, do whatever, highlight it, because that is a sweet, tender verse. I led them with cords of human kindness, with ties of love. To them I was like one who lifts a child to the cheek. I bent down to feed them. I drew them, it says, with bands of love. I laid food before them. God gives us food, ladies. This is why we give thanks when we sit down to a table full. I did not force them to serve me. I led them with bands of love. God will not force us to serve him either. Remember, I said there's no checklist. He just flat loves us. And he's waiting for us to come to him. The only band that he's going to put on us is going to be the band of love. He won't put a yoke on us. He won't put a bridle on us. His only appeal is that he loves us. Love is the strongest appeal. We're not puppets on a string. He doesn't just work us. He won't force us. He won't push us. Ladies, he moved heaven and hell to make it to the door of our hearts. What are we going to do with that? He stands at the door and knocks, it says in Revelation 3:20. What are we going to do? Are we going to open that door and let him in? He's not going to crash through that door and bust it down and force us to take him. Because he is a gentleman. And he's going to let us open that door. You can open that door tonight if you haven't yet.